Welcome back to another episode of the Pentacast Podcast. My name is Andrew Bella. Alongside me is, again, not Ryan Sellers, but this time it is Ty Hollinger.
I have a lot less hair than Ryan, but I'm a lot more good looking.
Absolutely. Well, let the audience be the judge of that. And folks, if you have not tuned in to last week's episode, I want you to stop what you're doing right now and listen to Ethan Nettles' testimony. It was absolutely outstanding. Ty, you refused to get in the camera.
I cried the whole time. I was in the background.
But yeah, well, Matt said, yeah, man, I knew Ty was going to cry. He's a crier. And if Ryan was here, he would have been squalling as well. And I'll be honest with you, I was tearing up too, because your testimony is absolutely outstanding. And there's no telling how far it's going to go, how many people it's going to touch, and encourage somebody else to go to Christ, because that's the goal. But at the end of your testimony, Ty, I could see his eyes were all red and everything, and Ty went, man, I cried the whole time. And Matt goes, yeah, man, I noticed that. You were crying the whole time.
I'm a crier too, so I like to identify.
I noticed you were crying too.
Criers, so.
Yeah, so look, Pentacast viewers, it's a bunch of guys in a room
Crying together?
crying, talking about the goodness of Jesus. So yes, what the world defines as wimpy or puny, we love talking about Christ, and when we do, we get emotional. We get teary-eyed. I told my wife, and I tell the young people a lot, if I'm not crying, the Lord's not helping me. Right. But if you ever see tears in my eyes, you better back up, because the Lord, either I'm really, really angry or God's blessing me, and you can tell the difference by the way I'm acting. But tears are definitely in my eyes when the Lord is really, really working on me. And so I just want to say again, Ethan, thank you. Matt, thank you for coming and being on the podcast. It is a huge honor. Not only are you a guest of ours, but I just feel like we just made a friendship right here in the same county that we live in. Total strangers, ladies and gentlemen, total strangers up until this point in our lives. But what brought us together is Jesus Christ. And I want us to really focus on that because what is one thing that drives people away from one another sometimes? It's church hurt. Jesus never causes division. I told somebody that today. We were talking. I said, Jesus adds and multiplies. The devil divides and subtracts. When we start talking about our relationship with Christ, it brings us together. We find unity. When we just start talking about religion or church or debate or whatever you want to do, that's going to draw us apart.
That's right.
But conviction comes from the Holy Spirit, and it's a drawing effect, man. It makes you go, I want to do this. I want to live for God. Just after hearing your testimony, Ethan, I just felt the man in me want to pound his chest going, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be a conqueror for my family. I'm going to be that man. Just even going, and I don't want to rehash your testimony out, because I want you, if you have not listened to it, to stop what you're doing and go listen to it, because he told it a lot better than I could tell it. But that part where you thought, man, this is going to make my dad proud, and he looked at you and said, man, I wasn't a man back then.
That's right.
But that was what you saw. Man, how many times do we as men, especially us fathers, we look at ourselves and go, man, I'm being a man. I'm showing my kids what it's all about. And it has nothing to do with God. You're not a man.
That's right.
You're not a man.
Well, did we get God involved in that decision?
That's right.
And did we say, what did God say about being a man?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times we don't involve, all we do is look at what the world says. We don't actually take what God says and use that.
That's right. That's right. So Matt, just like I asked your buddy Ethan, I want to ask you the same question. Where does it all begin?
I had a slightly different upbringing. My dad has always struggled with addiction, still does a little bit. Praise God, I got to be in a church service with him for the first time in my 27 years of existence on Father's Day.
This year?
That Sunday, yeah.
Wow, last month.
We got to have church together. My mother, about a year ago, I was about 6 months in going to church and being saved. I got to. She's been coming, not every Sunday, but she comes a couple times a month. So I've been able in the last year and a half to be able to attend church services with both my parents for the first time.
For the very first time in
The
your
first
adult
time.
life or in your life in general.
Yeah, and just like life in general.
Your mom and dad have never taken you to church ever.
No, not to the. I may have been like young to the point where like it's before my memories, but no, since I can recollect and remember, no, I've never been in church with my mom or dad
Wow.
at all. So, that's the kind of foundation is the understanding of that. But the bigger foundational piece is a big part of it is up until a year and a half ago, I was an atheist, and not just like I'm mad at God atheist. I was like I've studied it, I've researched it, I've looked at it, thought about it for a long time. You can't prove he's real. All the science says he's not real. He can't be real. So that's the foundational piece that you definitely need for this, for my testimony, is understanding that
You didn't even think he even lived.
yeah, what wasn't a real thing. So the foundation for my testimony is one, I like I said, I'd never been in church, and two, I didn't care to be because I didn't believe in God. No way.
Exactly.
So that's the two foundational pieces set for my testimony. Leading up to it, I remember too, like, because I have a wife and I have a 3.5-year-old son, and I was so like just stuck in my ways that we'd argue about like whether I would let my son go to church or not, because like my wife believed, I kind of talked her out of going into church because you know how I was, and we'd literally have arguments. I wasn't even like the type of like atheist that was like, you know, you could take my son to church if you want to. It was like, that's stupid. I don't want even like being around it. It's dumb. So no, you can't take him to church. It was bad.
Yeah.
It definitely was.
Yeah, especially those kind of arguments. It's not talking about what you want for supper. You know, It's talking about eternity.
Yeah,
you know,
literal eternity. But it definitely started about a year and a half ago. The foundation for that started a little bit earlier. So we end up at budget. We end up at the car lot. Of course, like Ethan said in the last episode, it wasn't like a perfect fit immediately. It wasn't just rainbow.
Yeah, it sounds to me like he was trying to cut your throat.
Well, it wasn't
Like,
rainbow and
I
sunshine.
love that kind of salesperson working with our company.
But I get there, Travis that he talked about, he had just, and what to talk Travis into coming here and giving his testimony, but he had just like overcome a lot.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about how he leaned on God to get through it, and I was, yeah, whatever. And then Ethan having the background that he has from his testimony, that did kind of lay a foundation, even though I didn't believe, but it was like, once we established that relationship, I loved them enough that like I'd entertain, I'd listen to them.
You had like people just surrounding you who
Yeah,
had
yeah.
experiences.
Yeah, it went from like my whole life had been any interaction with a church or church people was just always negative, because up until then I've always been like a heathen to that point. It was like tattoos. For some reason, I felt like I was supposed to be like a rock star, so it was like
Yeah.
girls and drugs and drinking, and it was
That's the life that you painted for yourself, right?
that was it. Like we.
I mean, isn't that understandable though? No church background whatsoever.
Yeah.
So everything that you are is what the church isn't, because you don't have any raising when it comes to church. I mean, in our eyes, you're feral.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Literally, yeah.
You're not domesticated in a church environment. You're not a church kid.
Yeah.
You know?
When you miss the raise a child up part, what do they have to return to?
Yeah.
Nothing good.
There was
Nothing
nothing good. He had no raising the child up in Christ. He had none. He didn't believe.
Well, at
Nobody ever
27
told
years
him.
old, you're with your family in church for the first time. I mean, you're a grown man at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Up until a year and a half ago, you're a grown man figuring this out for yourself.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. I'll never forget. I got to the point, and I tell this part of it a lot. I finally have purpose now in Christ. Not only purpose, but like I have like the hole that I know I've been trying to fill like my whole life. Like I found out what that hole is, and like of course it's filled now. But I'm at this point to where I'm married. I have a child, but I'm still, like I said, trying to fill this hole. I'm drinking. I'm doing drugs. It gets to the point where like it's every day, and then once it gets to the point to where it's every day, I begin to get home and I realize like I'm becoming like my dad, and that stirs like this spiral into like depression. Because I get to the point, even Ethan starts pointing it out. Like he's like, I tell him, I was like, hey, run me by the liquor store, and it goes from like once a week to like a couple times a week. And it's like, dang, like you're drinking like bottles. I'm like, yeah, like I'm of course denying it at the time, but I'm just trying to. The only way I can sit there and look at my family for 4 or 5 hours a night before I fall asleep is if I'm like blackout
Wasted, right?
Yeah, it's the only way. And I'm sitting there, and then I finally come to the realization that, like, after Ethan's told me like 100 times, like I come to the realization like it's out of control. Like it slipped to the point to where like I'll get home and I'll tell myself, I was like, I don't have a problem, I can make it. And my make it without it's like an hour, and it's like I made it an hour. Time to hammer down. And a guy we go to church with, Scott Lee, comes in, and he's talking to Ethan about buying a truck. And I'm just sitting there against the glass, and Scott Lee goes to talking about how the Holy Ghost has took away his taste for alcohol overnight, like in an instant. And I'm like, I don't know, man. That
and you don't even believe God exists.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I'm thinking about it a little bit. And like a day or two later, I'm in the tattoo chair. I'm sitting there. I'm in the tattoo chair. I'm getting, I believe, this tattoo done, and like I'm in that depression, and I'm like, I don't know. Like if I don't know which God that Brother Scott Lee's talking to, but I'm gonna send up a prayer to like all the gods, and like I told in that sermon, only one of them answered back to me. So I think it's either later that evening or the next day, I'm walking around in Walmart. And like, it sounds crazy if it's not y'all. If you don't have Jesus in your life, it's going to sound crazy. It sounded crazy to me the first time. But I remember looking up and like, I see Jesus. And I just stop. And like I said, I'm in a Walmart by myself. And I'm like, I give up. I quit. Like if you can fix me, like you won't, I got you. Mm-hmm. Until I die, I got you. Of course, I don't know what all entails being in ministry and being a Christian and being in church, but I got you. And I get saved that day.
Wow.
I believe is the moment I got saved, and I looked up
in Walmart,
and I saw Jesus, and I was like, I've been wrong for 25 years.
And isn't it awesome that you have all this knowledge of, I can prove to you he's not real, but yet even when you're arguing, there's a doubt in your mind like, I might be wrong.
Well, the crazy part of it is I've done just as much research, you can ask Ethan, since being saved on the scientific side of it. And when you actually take the time to not be, because as an atheist, you pride yourself on being open-minded, not being closed-minded.
But how closed-minded are you?
In the actual, the reality of things, you're the most closed-minded
individual there is, yeah.
When you look at stuff like from being saved, there's more scientific evidence that proves the existence of God, and not just the existence of a God, but the Abrahamic God and Jesus Christ, than any amount of evidence that proves it, elsewise.
That's correct.
If you look at science, 110%.
And so
God created the world, and Jesus is his son.
You referenced this, but one thing that just kind of gave me chills when I met you was that you're open about your denial of God,
right,
his existence, and you were also open about you weren't just defying Christianity. You're like, put any religion to the test. I don't believe any of this exists.
Right.
And so you started researching, what you told me was you started researching the Quran, Islam, Judaism, of course, Christianity, and all these other religions.
Yeah, I did.
And then you said, I just started praying to these gods, and only one replied.
Responded.
Only one.
Only one of them provided something that was so unexplainable that you had no choice Like he after 25 years of not believing, he took away my choice of being able to believe or not in a second.
That's pretty good, ain't it?
It's
I like that.
Like, all right, well, I was wrong. Now, like, what do I do next? Like, what do I do next now? Like, I've been wrong for 25 years. And the crazy part of it is like a lot of the stuff was overnight. That night before, like at the tattoo shop, that's the last time I've like been drunk. It's the last time I've been high. Like
Wow.
That night before that encounter in Walmart. That's
And even getting ink on your arm, you're trying to fill a void, man.
Yeah.
You're just, if I'm trying to be a certain person, I'm trying to fit a persona.
yeah.
As humans, the Bible tells us we're created to worship.
Right.
That's what we were created to do. And we worship something.
That's right.
We are a slave to something.
Everybody's a slave to something.
And I don't care who you are or what you believe, you are worshiping something. A lot of men worship their jobs. They worship lust. They worship these things that give them what they feel like is filling that hole that you're talking about.
It's a piece, and that's what
it's temporary.
We spoke about the shoes of peace. I told you we were doing our on the armor of God, and last week was the shoes of peace. And the world offers a peace, but God offers peace.
That's right.
It's a totally different thing.
Absolutely.
The world offers you a piece of appeal.
Yeah.
It offers you a piece of this carnal sin of lust. It offers you peace and alcohol, a peace. But that peace goes away. But the peace that passes all understanding,
only comes from God.
It only comes from God. You can't understand. We can't even comprehend it, especially if you're not a Christian. You can't comprehend the kind of peace that He feels.
Isn't it true though?
It is.
It's the peace of God which passeth all understanding. I don't understand it either.
No.
And it takes faith. I think we try to get so smart in our theology and things. Man, I know this, I know that. Whether you're trying to prove God's existence or whether you're trying to deny his existence, we want to get so book smart when Jesus said, hey, it's so simple. You got to come to me as a child.
That's right.
That's it. That's it.
So you look up and you see Jesus in Walmart.
Yep.
And then you look back down and see all the overpriced goods. and you go back to budget, and are you telling Ethan about this? Like, where does the connection happen there?
A lot of the times, like if you listen to his testimony from the last episode, like he talks about like trips to the Huddle House. Like we spend a lot of time.
And that's working on you, man.
Those earlier stages, like I just asked questions because I wanted to know, like real bad. And like I said, he has like he told y'all, he did go to a Christian college, and he was raised in church, so he has at that point, he has a ton of biblical knowledge, and it helps a ton. He's not definitely nowhere near where he is spiritually right now, but at an absolute minimum,
he had a foundation that
he had a foundation that I didn't have.
And I guess that's one thing that I've never even realized until right now, but his questions intrigued me because I already knew God. I knew Him. I was running, and of course, I wasn't saved. I'd actually, ran away from God.
At the same time of him being encouraged, it strengthened you.
Yeah, well, I mean, he wasn't even. He was just. This was at the time. The Huddle House trips was at the time to where he was like, "Hey, man, do you explain this to me in the Bible?" Mm-hmm. And whether I would know it or I'd have to go home and figure it out, it actually caused me to dig into my Bible.
Mm-hmm. It's strengthening you. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, I'm bringing the Bible off the shelf, getting it dusted off. All right, now I got to figure this out because at the time he looks to me as, and we were equals at the time.
Yeah.
He looks to me for like help.
How awesome is that, right?
It was
I
crazy.
told you it makes the least sense, but it makes the most sense at the same time. It's the wildest. It's crazy.
Yep.
It is. But yeah, so we're meeting up at Huddle House, and like I said, that's Scott comes in, and it's a couple weeks after the brother Scott Lee comes in and buys the truck. I shoot him a message. I'm like, what was that church like you were telling me about? Like you're telling us about when you got there? And he said Saving Grace Ministries. And I go to their Facebook page, and I grew up with his name, Brother David Smith. We grew up together. Fun story. He's a great singer, but he wanted to be a country music singer before he got into pastoring. And
so did Josh.
He looks like a country music singer. Looks like it. Like a Luke Combs type.
Yeah.
I had to take a joke. I wanted to say one. But Brother David Smith, like I said, he wanted to be a country music singer, and I've always been pretty solid with technology. I actually years ago, like I said, we grew up really good friends, and I made a demo for him with just like a mic from Walmart and some downloaded software. But I go to Saving Grace page, and we haven't talked since high school. So I went my way, and then he started preaching at like 16, and I'm like, that's David Smith preaching right there. I said, I could see myself, as at this point I'm saved, but like I don't know what to do. I got to find a church, and
you don't know anything about church,
I don't know anything
right?
about
It's
church.
like,
I'm like, what do I do?
Ethan, help him out, right?
Hey man, I was lost.
You know, isn't
I
that
was
crazy
lost.
though? The guy that you were supposed to be, the guy that had it all figured out, and yet God's helping you while you're helping him.
I mean, at this time, he was like a little brother to me.
Yeah.
You know, he come to me for financial advice. You know, when he bought his first home, he wanted my input on it. He wanted my help. Whenever he bought, you know, some of his vehicles, he come to me for that advice. But this is the advice that was like, hey man, I need to get in a church. You do. I mean, it does say fellowship in the Bible. That's what it says. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Good luck.
The first honest to goodness thing I told him was, whenever he found a church, was don't get church hurt. Be careful.
Yeah, man.
Because it's not everybody's there to worship God. A lot of people's there just for a social gathering. No matter what church you go to.
You're right, man.
You know, a church is a lot of the problem with the Christian religion. It really is.
It is.
You know, you talked about it, about the division. You know, there's no confusion is not of God.
It's not.
Division is not of God. You're exactly right. But it seems like the devil always tries to pin me against you at our church, because the thing is, if me and him, we go together in ministry, and, you know, we reach 3,000 kids in our youth ministry, you know, if the devil could have tore us apart whenever we first met and made us hate each other the way I thought it was going to happen, that's what I thought it was going to be. I mean, we're at almost at blows at budget some days about car deals.
Yep.
You know, but if the devil could have separated us then and made one of us quit right then, we'd have never been here right now.
You would have never been there to strengthen him.
You know,
to answer those questions for him.
Well, he preached the last youth service a couple Sundays ago, and it's one of the, like, when you talking about like encouraging, it was the vision, not division.
That's good stuff, man.
You know, he talks about that when
He's
they
proud of that sermon. He's smiling. He's like,
it was solid, man.
That was off the dome, man.
You talk about
title.
what did they say whenever they went up in one mind and one accord into the upper room? You know, we'll never get revival again in America or in the world, for that matters, until we get in one mind and one accord and become unified in Christ.
That's right.
But we can't, because I can't see past this difference that I have with you. Or I don't like the way you looked at me during church service. Or I don't like the way you disciplined my child. Well, I wasn't called to be your child's friend. I was called to be their youth pastor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And if I see something wrong, I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
But we can't get past these small flaws. I can't reach Josh outside the church. Not that you're outside the church, but just paraphrase, you know, just making you an example. I can't reach you outside the four walls of the church if I'm quarreling with one of my brothers or sisters.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was crazy the way God like put that together, and it's like his intrigue into Christ, into following the church, actually intrigued me. I was like, Well, I mean, if he can fix him,
exactly. So that's automatically going in your mind. You're like, I better start paying attention.
I look like the better option at the time. I've got it figured out, man. I've got, I've got my financial set up. I've got a good family. My wife's a good Christian. You know, you got this rank center, but at the end of the day, nobody could see the dark stuff in me. Mm-hmm. You couldn't see my sin because I hid it well. He just didn't hide it.
He was transparent.
He never knew how to fake it. I've never seen him in church or out of church where there's not a fake moment. He doesn't know how to. He doesn't know how to play church.
Don't ever learn.
That's the best Christian you can be.
Yeah. He has a relationship with God, though. And once you establish that relationship with God, like a real relationship with God, he's not dating God. He's married to him. Mm-hmm. He has a relationship with him. He's not dating him anymore.
And God's not looking for a way out either.
No.
He's not looking for a way out. So you get plugged into Saving Grace Ministries, and then you're just like head first. It's kind of like what Ethan said in his testimony. There's no sitting on a pew. It's either all or nothing.
No, it's all or nothing, because it's you go so long, like in the early stages, it was like, man, like I wish I would have got. I wish I'd known it sooner. Like, why do we have to wait like so long? Later on in my walk, I understand like it's like y'all were saying like earlier, like because of not having that upbringing, I feel like I'm maybe a little bit more rooted than some people just because of.
You made that decision for yourself.
Yeah, I guess like I can't go back to that. Like I don't have time to go back to that.
Yeah.
I mean I'm 27 and I've been saved a year and a half. I don't have time to.
No, you don't have
I
time
don't have
to play
time to
around.
backslide. I don't like. I don't have the time for it. It's the same way Ethan feels. Been like you run for so long. We ain't got time to backslide.
Yeah.
Like, we can't. Like we ain't got time to. We ain't got time to be like mediocre Christians. We just ain't got time for it. We've wasted too much time already.
And how old's your son now?
He's 3.5.
He's 3.5. Okay, so
3.5.
right now he's 3.5.
Yeah, he's 3.5 right now.
And isn't this crazy to think about this, guys? He could look at you and go, I've never known my dad not to be a Christian.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he'll see. Because I remember in my mind, like I was telling you, like me becoming my dad, there'd be nights when like I'd be like in the bed, just threw up, and he'd be like shaking me, and like that just set it off worse. But now he wasn't old enough to remember that. This is like all he's gonna remember. This is it.
He's gonna be shaking you while you're down on your knees praying for your family.
That's it. That's all he's gonna. All he's gonna know his dad is this for the rest of his life. That's it.
That's awesome, man.
I'm set for it. So
That's
but yeah,
awesome.
we're at Saving Grace, and it's just it's the craziest thing because of course, like I said, I've had every encounter I've had outside of like one or two people that were in church was negative. Especially once like you get the physical appearance. Once you start getting tattoos and stuff, down here in the South, you know how it is. It's a lot worse. But I'm watching, and he works with us now. His name's Chucky. But like I'm watching this live stream because it takes me like 2 or 3 weeks before I decide to like show up to the building. But I'm watching these live streams, and Chucky's up there, hands raised, praising God. And he's got him. He's tattooed from like his neck to his fingers, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I could probably make it here if old Tattoo Hands up there is if he's getting his praise on. Like I should be okay.
You automatically feel like they're gonna accept me for who I am.
Yeah, that's it. And we get in there, and it's the craziest struggle early on was like the devil would keep trying to use like the doubt. Like, man, you were desperate. You've made all this up in your head. Like you're desperate. And I remember the moment where it was like God was like, let me show you that it's not. It was in church, and I was flipping through my Bible, and my eyes caught, I forget the specific verse, but it caught the specific verse, and like I saw it, and I was like, I felt God leading me like, you need to read that, and I was like, ugh. So I kept flipping through the Bible, and like I said, if you're an atheist and you're listening to this, you're like, oh, he's lying right now. Let me tell you, as a 25-year atheist, I'm not lying. This is God's honest truth. I keep flipping past it. I hold my Bible with both hands. I look up to see what Pastor Cliff's talking about. I look back down. I'm back at that verse that I was in. It's like explain that with science, Matt.
What verse was it?
I can't remember the specific verse.
Oh, okay.
I remember I know it was in James. Like I said, it was something. I remember the timing being perfect, but it was like, it wasn't so much like the timing in the verse as it was like, buddy, you've been science minded for your whole life, buddy. I'm God. I don't conform to your mind's idea of science, but I'm outside that. And like I said, that's about 4 or 5 months in. And from there, it's just been like
one thing after the other.
Yeah. It's just, there's no doubt no more. There's of course like normal struggles as a man of God, as a Christian, that we all deal with. From that side of it, that's the end of like atheism at that point.
Yep, and it starts a new walk with Christ, and you're a year and a half in. I remember I have a history of drug addiction. I went to 2 drug rehabs before I was 18, and so I definitely know. Well, one of the drug rehabs I was in, I was 18. And I know what it's like to battle with addiction and everything. And I remember thinking whenever I got saved, man, if I could last a month,
That's right.
Yeah.
if I could say that I've been saved for 3 months, if I could somehow say that I've been saved for a year, I think I can make it. Well, that was 13 and a half,
That's right.
14 years ago. You know what I mean? And so when your mind gets off of, man, I think I can, and then you realize
That's right.
I am.
Yep.
I am.
literally am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am because he is.
Exactly. I'm not doing
That's
it in my own strength. I'm not making this life with my own power. If that was the case, I failed day one.
Yeah, we never make it.
Never make
Never
it.
make it.
Pastor Cliff said in the, I forget, I can't remember if it was morning service or Sunday or night service Sunday. He said, "Everything I've got,
That's a big statement.
God gave me
That's right.
everything," and that is like
For
that
a
has sat
man.
with me since Sunday. He's not talking about like everything I've got, like my house,
Physically.
my vehicle,
Everything.
not even just the physical. Everything I've got.
Every breath you've taken.
God's given
We're
me.
here tonight because God allowed us to be.
That's exactly right.
Everything
And when you say that, it's a big statement because you're really giving him everything.
That's right.
Everything I have it's his.
Yeah.
It's his. The Bible says that everything that is in the earth is his, and the fullness thereof.
Yeah.
Everything belongs to him.
Everything.
Nothing is ours. This land, a church I pastored, a deacon there, said something real profound. He said, "You think you own something? Go look at the plaque of land that you think you own, and look how many people owned it before you." He said, "You don't own anything." He said, "Quit paying taxes on it and see how long you own it."
Just passing
You know what I
through.
mean?
That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
We're just dust.
Just here.
That's it.
We're here today, gone tomorrow, man.
The only thing that'll be remembered about us is what we do for him while we're here. That's it.
That's it.
It's the only thing that'll be remembered.
That's
Nobody will remember me for the house that I owned or the cars I drove or, what I could buy or this, that, and the other. The only thing that'll be passed on is the same thing that was passed on to me from youth pastor or pastors, that people that touch my life.
That's
not,
right.
Not just those, just Christians in general, the ones that were actually effective and actually loved. Those people that touch me, regardless of if they're going 100 years from now or 300 years from now, I'll remember. You remember. I listen to your testimony. You remember. Those people that actually touched your life, their legacy lives on because of how God used them to touch you.
That's why we always we're still talking about Trudy. That's why.
That's it.
That's why right there. Because that's the only thing that matters here.
That's right.
So what you leave behind.
That's right.
And if you put if God's in what you leave behind, it'll never be erased.
It's eternal.
That's
It's
right.
eternal.
What's the time frame from when you had your experience in Walmart to when God called you to ministry?
To minister, about right at a year, maybe a little bit less. Ministry started. I had a friend of mine that was interested in coming to church. I'd been witnessing a little bit, and she didn't have a ride. And I asked. I'd seen we had this old bus sitting outside. I reached out to the pastor. I said, "Pastor Cliff, we got this bus. Like, what's it doing?" And he was like, "You got nobody to drive it." So the first, like I said, maybe a little bit less than a year. The first ministry was the bus. We got the bus repainted and decaled and kicked off the bus ministry. That was the first ministry.
I know you and Brother Ethan are involved in the youth ministry. How long till you got involved in that?
How long was it? We've been here, 6 months now?
It was January, the end of January.
Jeez, I don't feel like that. So
End of
a
January.
little over a year.
Hmm.
It was fast, but God knows what He's doing. Like Ethan said, everything that I don't have, He's not only good at, He's an expert at.
Well, for guys with your passion, God knows the way to keep you is to keep you busy and motivated. And I think it's really, really good for new converts, especially someone that was so adamant that God didn't exist. I mean, you're working overtime right now for him because of what he's done for you.
Yeah.
And you think about it, guys with passion, you can't stay silent. You can't just sit around doing nothing, especially the Bible actually, a piece of scripture that I use to defend that I personally believe that atheism is, with no offense, but I feel like it's a farce. Like people who say they're atheists are really not, because the Bible tells us that they that the works of God have been revealed to all, and that they hold the truth in unrighteousness. That's why whenever you were talking about how you were defending it so strong, I don't believe that he exists, but yet there was always that time in your life where you're like, okay, I want to try it. It was like, even though if it may have been a thimble full of doubt, it was still enough for you to go, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I have no doubt if I throw a pin in the air right now, gravity's going to put it to the ground. There's no doubt in my mind. I never throw a pin up and go, oh, I hope it didn't go up. Yep. You know what I mean? That's 100%. I know for a fact that's what's going to happen.
Right.
But that little bit of a doubt that you had, I'm not saying that it was a lot by any means, but just that little bit, you're holding the truth in unrighteousness for all those years. You're holding the truth. In Romans, that's what it says. You held the truth in unrighteousness. And the minute he makes a man of God out of you, guess what you have in your hands? The truth.
Here's the thing. Here's the crazy part of it. And if you don't believe in God currently, you're listening to this, this is a open challenge, I'd say. You don't even realize, like, you don't even know that you don't know yet. Once I got saved and I understood who Jesus was, I look back and I see, dude, I've never been without Jesus.
That's right.
I've never. There's plenty of times that I can look back.
You see his fingerprints in your life.
His fingerprints on it, and it's. If you want to find out, give it a try. Like I said, it's not until you step out on that faith that all that's going to be revealed to you. If you don't never take that step, I mean, it's going to look like he's never been there.
Just taste and see. You don't never know till you taste.
Taste and see.
That's exactly right, man. Guys, it's been awesome. I really appreciate your testimony, Matt. I'm excited. I mean, we're a year and a half into your story.
Right.
I mean, a guy with your delivery and the way that you can talk to people, especially even off the air, I'm excited to see, what the Lord's going to do for you. I get excited when somebody, it's like when you hire somebody to sell a car. People who don't sell cars, they don't know this, but if you hire a guy who knows everything, it's like, well, I can't teach you anything.
That's right.
If any other profession, if I owned a plumbing business or a carpentry business, I don't want to hire somebody who thinks they know it all and they can't be taught anything.
Right.
And so when you think about how when Christ told Peter, he said, "Do you love me?" He's like, "Yeah." He said, "Feed my lambs."
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. He told him that once. And he said, "Do you love me?" And Peter said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Feed my sheep."
Feed my sheep.
And he said, "Do you love me?" He said, Peter said, "Come on, Christ, I told you." He said, "Feed my sheep." Twice.
Yeah.
A lamb, new convert.
Yeah.
Just this little precious baby. They're so eager to do anything for God. Hey, let's use this bus and try to reach somebody. But who did he say? You got to love them twice as much. The sheep that think they know everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be pliable, be moldable, and just see what God can do. Man, I'm excited to hear what God's going to do in your life in the next year and a half, the next 10 years. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hope it's not the last time. It's not the last time.
Definitely not.
Thank you guys for tuning in again to another episode of the Pentacast podcast. Have a great week. Over and under.